All right, we'll get started. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is James Howe. Uh, I represent the interests of Dominic Vincent, Vincent Greco, and Joseph Greco, three young men who were the victims of a violent attack on June 23rd just last week. To my right sits Dominic Vincent, who was struck in the left arm by a bullet fired by Daniel Dolan, member of the Pawtucket Police Department. This incident occurred in West Greenwich on Route 3, otherwise known as Nooseneck Hill Road. These three boys, lifelong friends, the two Grecos are brothers, were all together, as young people do. Dominic had driven to their home. Earlier in the evening, they had a planned sleepover at Dominic's house. Dominic picked up Vincent and Joe, and the plan was to go back to his house to watch an NBA playoff game. Prior to going to their house, after Dominic picked them up, they went to the Walmart in Coventry over at the center of New England Shopping Plaza, where they picked up, snacks to watch a ball game and food to have breakfast the next morning. They also, once leaving the Walmart, made a call to an establishment, a pizzeria known as Wicked Good Pizza, which is their neighborhood pizza place. They intended to pick that pizza up and then go and watch a game. As they pulled into and got to their parking spot in the parking lot of Wicked Good Pizza, a vehicle which we now know was operated by Daniel Dolan, which we believe is his own vehicle, not marked in any way with indication of it being that of a police officer, drove quickly into the parking lot. You see this on the video, which has been made available since last week, almost striking the driver's side door of Dominic's car. Upon seeing that, Dominic noted the rapidity with which the vehicle pulled in, the closeness to his vehicle, and then he saw Officer Dolan alight from that vehicle and come around the front of that vehicle. He appeared to have something in his hand. We now believe that it was some form of identification, a badge, and also was plainly had a holstered weapon on his hip. Dominic observed that, and without any hesitation, having no idea of who this individual was, and you can see this on the video, put his car in reverse and backed out of that parking lot. It was his intention, once he got out to Nooseneck Hill Road, to get out of there. He was frightened. He's 18 years old. He'd been driving for about 16 months prior to last week. Once he backed his car out, he put his car into drive and began to move forward. It was in these moments that Officer Dolan ran around the front of the vehicle, yelled something. The windows were up in the car. There has been some indication in some either social media or other form of media sources that this vehicle had, shaded windows or anything like that. This was a stock vehicle. This vehicle was as this young man said to me yesterday, it's like a fishbowl. You can see right in it. As he was now placed his car in drive and was creeping forward to begin the process of acceleration, Officer Dolan ran around the car to the driver's side of the car and shot one bullet, which these young men will say the first thing they heard was the smashing of glass, the bullet striking Dominic in his upper left arm, shattering his humerus. As he sits before you, he wears the cast that was affixed to his arm by the trauma center at Rhode Island Hospital on Wednesday evening. Once Dominic was shot, he screamed out and cried out to his friends that he had been hit, and drove forward. We estimate he drove about 100, maybe 150 yards, whereupon he pulled over to the shoulder of the road. When he pulled over to the shoulder of the road, he opened his door to alight from his vehicle. His best friend Vincent came around the vehicle to offer him some aid. It is at this point, and there is some additional video from the pizzeria which shows, actually the original video shows Officer Dolan go back to his vehicle, get in his vehicle and drive off. He then drives up the road and stops his vehicle at or near where Dominic had stopped his. He gets out and quite frankly acted almost as inappropriately as he had acted prior to that. He began yelling at these boys, telling Vincent to get away from Dominic, which at 18 years old he did. Dominic was left to walk himself over to a guardrail where he sat. Officer Dolan at no time offered first aid, at no time offered any form of comfort to Dominic. It was within moments thereafter that police and fire responded. We believe that the first phone call to 911 was made by the younger Greco when he was in the back seat. He was alone in that back seat. He had no idea what was going on. He, in effect, dove to the floor of that back seat, and while there had the incredible presence of mind to call 911. That is really all we will say about the incident as we know it. Dominic is continuing with his medical care. There are a number of issues presented by this incident. The type of trauma that these young men have. I say young men only because I have the level of respect for them that I do, but they are boys. And the trauma that they have sustained is unspeakable. We have reached out and we have been in communication with the Office of the Attorney General and the Detective Division of the Rhode Island State Police, who have kept us apprised as best they feel they can of their investigation. If there's any questions, we'll do our best to answer them. I will do my best to answer them.
When they first came in contact with Mr. Dolan?
In the part, what you see on the video is when they first came in contact with Mr. Dolan. There is no indication. These boys did not see that white truck. They had no idea who Mr. Dolan was beforehand, and they only learned about that he was a police officer after this incident. They saw him for the first time when you see him for the first time on the video.
So no previous engagement prior to that point?
No previous engagement prior to that point.
Any idea why Chief Ramsey said that something must have happened on 95 that he viewed as, quote, bad?
We have no idea where that comes from.
James, was Officer Dolan drug tested or given a DUI at the scene? Have you learned if that's happened? And if not, why not?
We have not learned of that at all. We know no reason why if there were indications why it wouldn't have occurred, but we have not been informed of that one way or the other, Mr. DePietro.
Without telling us exactly what he said outside, I think that's outside the liquor store. Is that correct, Big River?
Well, it was.
He was talking to them.
We believe it was somewhere within the distance between the parking lot of Wicked Good Pizza and the Big River liquor store, somewhere in that area. All we do know is that he was intimidating in his speech towards these boys. You know, intimidating in his speech, telling the older Greco boy to stay away from his best friend. and in effect kind of taking over the scene in a very intimidating fashion. The boys, they're sitting in front of you, and you don't know anything about them, but take my word for it, these are solid kids.
In your press release, you say that there's evidence that you uncovered implicating that Daniel Dolan has other incidents of brutality when making arrests. How do you base those claims?
We're aware of at least 2 other incidents in the city of Pawtucket whereupon Officer Dolan exhibited brutal and intimidating conduct against people that he took into custody. There are videos that are available. Have been videos sent to me. I am aware of reports that were made to the mayor's office in Pawtucket, the chief of police office in Pawtucket, the city council in Pawtucket, the office of the solicitor in Pawtucket, all of which specifically referencing acts of Officer Dolan prior to this that raised certain questions as to his competence as a police officer.
Do you know who those came from? Are you going to share those publicly?
I am aware of I guess you might call it a neighborhood group and a neighborhood activist in Pawtucket, who's, as I'm speaking to you right now, I cannot recall her name. However, I have been contacted by her and other people who, I guess one might say, are associated or work with her.
Jim,
We've obtained.
have they shared any information with you, such as where was the detail he was working and what time did that end? Most of the time a police detail ends sometime between 4 and 5. This incident was at 8 o'clock. So why was he in plain clothes and where he had been after the detail ended?
These are incredibly pertinent questions that we have no response to and no answer to. But clearly, as you can see in the video, he was not in a police cruiser. He was not in uniform. If anything, he looked like, an everyday, working person, as many of us are familiar with. He pulled in. He had what appears to be a Ford truck with no cab on it. He's wearing coveralls. He's wearing a T-shirt, and that's it. No indication that he was acting. Well, no indication that he was, a police officer. Really, no indication he was a police officer. Because if he was, I think I can be very confident to say that these boys would not have reacted, that this young man at the wheel would not have reacted that way. He comes from a solid family. He knows what's right and wrong. He's been raised that way. In my, what I do for a living, bad things happen to good people. And we meet people after something bad happened. And there becomes sort of an intensity of the relationship that develops rather quickly. I've been doing this a long time, almost 40 years. And I can tell you that these are fine boys, and they're raised by fine people.
So the Coalition Radio Network obtained copies of emails and an email exchange between neighborhood activists with attached videos with the head of the police department, the internal affairs officer, and also forwarded those emails to the police accreditation agency that governs police forces in the state. And this goes back to 2019.
We're aware of that.
Any idea why these folks who are responsible for our public safety would sit on that type of information when it's clear that this individual has situations dating back a couple of years, not weeks, months, years?
Those are questions we'd like answers to, and I can only assure you that this office will work diligently to get answers to those questions. It's the best I can tell you.
Jim, why hasn't Dolan been arrested? This happened Wednesday night. This is Monday afternoon. He shot an unarmed teen. Why hasn't he been arrested?
That's a question I can't answer. We don't have authority to arrest. We have authority to seek the truth, and we have the ability to seek the truth, and we will do that, but I can't answer that question.
Jim, can you explain the route that the young men took to get to the pizza shop?
Sure. They Dominic picked up his friends at the center of New England. They went from there right to the Walmart, which is right there. They got on 95 South at exit 7 and got off at exit 6. When you get off at exit 6, it kind of takes you sort of northbound, kind of going back towards exit 7. And that's where they were going to the pizzeria to pick up the pie. Dominic lives within a few minutes of that.
So you said the bullet shattered is humorous. What's his prognosis? Is he going to retain?
We are waiting on that, quite frankly. He is seeking and follow-up medical attention this week. We believe that we'll have somewhat of a better idea. This is a bullet wound, okay? This is not a skateboarding accident. This is not, an accident on a playground or something. This is a serious accident. When you think about it, and the thing that is, most shocking of it all is the fact that it is a bullet wound. To me, I'm sure most of us in this room have had sports-related accidents, slip and falls at home, or what have you. How many people have been shot? I've known a few, and only in the course of my practice, and I know another one now. And I've never known one at this age who's looking at his entire life in front of him, going to college, getting married, raising a family, living a life, going through the type of life changes that occur when we all feel potentially some, emotional upset or whatnot as we go through these life changes. Think about it when you've gone through what these three boys have gone through. When you were in a vehicle where your best friend got shot, and not only that, but you were in the car when the bullet was fired into the vehicle. The potential of had it missed Dominic could have hit either one of these two boys.
Can you speak further on that, just on their behalf? The boys, how are they doing now, days after, just mentally kind of having this happen to them?
That's an ongoing process, and it'd be difficult for me to really put a short answer on it. I think it's an evolving, ongoing process with all of them. I give them all a lot of credit for wanting to be here. I took time with them and their families, because obviously many of you in the media had reached out to me, and I wouldn't consider doing this without them knowing about it. And I think their parents, and especially these boys, have exhibited remarkable courage to be here today.
Jim, was there something in the Audi that could have resembled a weapon? BB gun, toy gun?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So he and Chief Ramsey of West Greenwich saying something happened on 95, he observed criminal behavior. You don't have an idea?
We deny that in its entirety.
Okay. And can you just confirm, Channel 10 did a story that Dominic actually nominated his teacher with the Golden Apple Award. Can you confirm that that's him?
That is him. That is him.
Sir, given I'll characterize this as stonewalling by the Pawtucket Police Department over the last few years. We had the opportunity to ask Governor McHugh this morning if he was going to ask the state police to investigate actively, not just the event as a part of the protocol with the Attorney General that's been invoked, but actively investigate the Pawtucket Police Department as an entirety. He, of course, citing a lack of knowledge of a lot of the issues yet, because it's still under investigation, deferred. Do you believe at this point, given even the approach of the Pawtucket Police Department towards this incident, that there should be a state police investigation into the affairs of the Pawtucket Police Department?
If it is true that Officer Dolan has been engaged in conduct for the years prior to this event, then I think that speaks for itself. There absolutely should be an investigation. Mm-hmm. We intend to conduct an investigation through the appropriate systems, the appropriate legal systems. We intend to do that, and we would certainly be willing to share many of our findings if they do uncover what we believe they will uncover with any policing authority we would want them.
Families have retained you, obviously. What do they want to see happen here?
They think that the law and the processes of the law should be brought to bear on Officer Dolan, first and foremost. Secondly, they feel that the rights of their children have been significantly abridged by the actions of Officer Dolan, and that the law offers remedies for that. And they are asking me and my office and my staff to explore all those available remedies, which we will do.
Jim, certain state police sources say that the officers that night and now find it hard to believe Dolan's account versions, his version of what happened that night. Can you speak to that? Have you heard anything about that?
No one has told me that in so many words. If I had to hazard a guess, I think that the activities of Officer Dolan last Wednesday night are so shocking that, and without any indication of anything else, that it would be a surprise to me if the type of quality investigators that you have on the Rhode Island State Police and the type of lawyers that you have working in the criminal division, the Attorney General's office, would put any credence into what he says. But
and I just
time
want to
will
confirm
tell.
the events. When he disappears from the screen in front of Wicked Good Pizza, he leaps onto the hood, and as they're pulling away, shoots through the glass, striking the driver.
He gets around the front of Dominic's vehicle. He either jumps onto the hood or somehow runs around and places his hand on the hood. He gets around to the passenger side of the vehicle. So in effect, he kind of where you're standing, John, he kind of starts and he ends up where this photographer to my left is standing. And this would be where Dominic would be sitting, to the left of his vehicle. Once Dolan comes around, he fires. He fires. It's so outrageous.
Did he say anything before he fired?
We believe that he was yelling something. Exactly what it was, we're not so sure at this point. The windows were up. You've got, and again, here we are talking about this for the last 15 minutes. This happened within seconds, moments. So you've got the adrenaline flow, you've got the fear of these young men, and the next thing you know, you've got an adult standing there with a gun who shoots it.
And the bullet went through the windshield or the driver's side window?
Went through the driver's side window, striking Dominic in his upper left arm.
The officer in question, his employment status as it rests right now, is it still he's on leave with pay?
I understand that he is. I don't know anything particular about. All I know about that is what I've read in the media.
If that's so, speaking for the emotional state of the family, do you find that appropriate? Is that within your experience that is typical in a case so egregious as this?
Police officers' Bill of Rights offers them a great deal of status and due process rights and what have you. And this is not an opportunity to really discuss what I think about the police officer Bill of Rights. However, what I've read is what I've seen before in incidents of this nature, where a police officer is suspended, maybe assigned to desk duty as opposed to patrol duties, and usually the salary continues.
Jim, I want to ask you about the surveillance tape. The way I viewed it, it looks like the Audi has its blinker on, that they're taking a right. Can you confirm that the blinker was on? Because that would, the element that maybe they were trying to get away or give them the slip, you wouldn't do that if you put it in the blinker.
Not only would you not do it if you're pulling the blinker was on. Okay, look, you can see that in the video. So Dominic is driving up Nooseneck Hill Road, Route 3, and he's pulling in to get his pizza. They had called for the pizza about 12 minutes before, as they were coming out of the Walmart. They called to get a pizza, come on in, ready in 15 minutes, whatever they were told. He drives down, he drives one exit on Route 95 North, takes a right into Wicked Good Pizza, and the next thing you know, all hell breaks loose, quite frankly. That's exactly what happened. Would someone have acted like that if they were in the middle of some kind of criminal activity or road rage? I mean, just ask yourself that. It's ridiculous to even contemplate.
What evidence are you aware of at this point other than that surveillance video? It sounds like right now it's just he said versus what these boys say would have happened. Are there other clues here?
There are other statements that have been made to us and my investigator by employees at Wicked Good Pizza, and we are not privy to anyone else the state police or the Attorney General's office may have spoken with.
Can you say more about what happened at the scene after the boys pulled over? He yells at the older brother to get away. Can you talk about what happened when the first responders was Officer Dolan a part of the
What we're told is, what the boys recall is this: Dominic was sitting on the guardrail, feeling faint. He did not lose consciousness, although he thinks he didn't lose consciousness. At least that's what he told me. He very well may have blacked out for a while, but sat on a guardrail, fearful that if he lost consciousness, he'd fall over the other side of it. The two Greco boys were immediately separated, one each placed in a state police cruiser. Dominic being then attended to by members of the, we understand, the Mishnock Fire Department EMTs. What has been told to me by these boys is, at the time, as things were still, you know, I guess you'd only say, you know, hot and heavy, still going, they noticed Officer Dolan standing apart from, certainly away from them, commiserating with police officers. Not much different than I'm probably commiserating with you folks right now. And one of the boys does recall him lighting a cigarette.
And that was with the West Greenwich police officers or the state troopers?
There was so many around, I don't know if they can really identify one for the other.
Have you been able to get any understanding of why the officer who had clearly shot an individual, why he wasn't detained on the spot? Has anyone testified to that at any level?
We don't know. I think one of the bigger questions is, how is it that a police officer, after causing this kind of injury to someone, in effect being the first legal responder on the scene, did not offer first aid to this young man, is astounding to me. You're talking, this is a bullet wound.
Right.
This is not a, you know, a paper cut, okay? This is a bullet wound. And for him not to offer even a modicum of first aid is outrageous.
Can you touch on the two brothers being separated into cruisers? What was the purpose of that?
They were questioned, and I will say that once their father arrived on the scene, Mr. Greco arrived on the scene, he was outraged by that. He was upset by that. You know, where are my sons? What are they doing in the back of police cruisers? They didn't do anything wrong. And I am informed that they were relatively immediately removed from the police, from the cruisers, and reunited with their dad.
Have either of your clients ever seen Officer Dolan before that moment we see in the video, and ever in their lives? Any interaction whatsoever?
Never. At no time before what you see on the video did these boys ever see this man.